Hey everyone, welcome back to Humaning, where we dive into all things about being, well, human, curiosity, connection, and the little joys along the way. I'm Zoe, and I'm so excited you're here with us today. We've got such a fun topic lined up: travel on a budget. If you've ever dreamed of seeing the world without emptying your bank account, you're in the right place. And as always, I'm joined by my wonderful co host, Amir. Hi, Amir.
Hey Zoe. Hi everyone. I'm genuinely looking forward to this one because traveling really is one of life's greatest teachers, but it can also feel out of reach for so many people. I love digging into ways we can make it more accessible. And before we really get rolling, just a quick thank you to everyone listening. If you're enjoying Humaning, it'd mean so much if you could like, subscribe, and maybe even share us with a friend. It helps our little community grow, and we love having you along for the ride.
Absolutely, we genuinely do. Okay, so travel on a budget. This is a topic really close to my heart. I mean, I grew up in a family that didn't have a ton of money for big vacations, but my parents were resourceful. We'd do these epic road trips piling into our tiny car, packing sandwiches, and staying at weird roadside motels. It wasn't glamorous, but honestly, those are some of my favorite memories. Amir, what about you? Did you travel a lot growing up? Was it budget style?
Oh, definitely. My family moved around quite a bit, but not in a jet-setty way. It was always with a very practical mindset. My parents were teachers, so, we were always looking for deals or visiting places where we had family or friends. That's something I think about a lot. People sometimes have this idea that real travel is about five-star hotels or fancy resorts, but some of the richest experiences come from finding those little corners of the world that aren't even in the guidebooks. And often, they're much friendlier on your wallet.
That's so true. And you mentioning staying with family made me think about how, our networks can be such a resource. I remember once in college, I wanted to visit New York, but couldn't afford a hotel. So I basically couch surfed with a friend's cousin. I was so nervous. I didn't know them at all, but it ended up being the best trip. They showed me their favorite little coffee shops, and I got to see a side of the city I never would have as a tourist. It's kind of amazing how people open up when you're traveling on a shoestring.
Absolutely. I think there's something about traveling on a budget that just forces you to connect with people, with places, with your own resourcefulness. I've always appreciated the way it slows you down too, like if you're not rushing from one paid attraction to the next, you notice more. You're suddenly wandering local markets or just people watching in a park. I remember being in Istanbul years ago, and I spent an entire afternoon sipping tea with locals in these tiny, tucked-away tea gardens. It cost maybe $1 or two, and it's still one of my most cherished memories.
Oh, that sounds so dreamy. And honestly, I think that's the heart of it. The moments you remember aren't usually the expensive ones. They're the spontaneous, slightly weird, deeply human moments. And you totally nailed it about slowing down. When you're on a budget, you can't just Uber everywhere or buy tickets to every attraction, so you get creative. You walk, you talk to strangers, you get lost and end up finding something better than your original plan.
So true, I think there's a certain humility in budget travel too. You're not insulated from the world. You're right there in it. Like taking public transportation instead of taxis. It's such a simple thing, but it changes your whole perspective. I remember learning so much about a city just by sitting on a bus, watching people, overhearing snippets of conversation. You get a sense of the rhythm of daily life.
Yes, and I love that you brought up public transport because it's not only cheaper, but it's also more environmentally friendly, which is something I care a lot about. Plus, you get these little glimpses into how a place really works. Like in Lisbon, I got totally addicted to riding those old yellow trams. They were slow, a little rickety, but full of character. And I met the sweetest old lady who gave me tips on where to find the best pastel de nata. It's like, for the price of a tram ticket, I got a whole experience.
And it's those little exchanges that stick with you, right? I think sometimes people are hesitant to travel on a budget because there's this fear of missing out on the big sights. But honestly, I've found that some of the most meaningful travel moments happen in the margins, Like I once got invited to a family dinner in Morocco by someone I met at a market. I could never have planned that. It just unfolded because I was open and not rushing through a packed itinerary.
I love that so much. It's like when you leave space in your schedule and your budget for the unexpected, magic happens. But I know for a lot of people, even getting started can feel intimidating. Like, where do you even begin if you want to travel but don't have a lot to spend? Amir, do you have any go to tips for making travel more affordable?
Oh, absolutely. I think there are a few big levers. First, flexibility is everything. If you can be flexible with your travel dates, you can save so much on flights and accommodation. Midweek flights, off-season travel, it makes a difference. I'm a huge fan of using flight comparison tools like Google Flights or Skyscanner and just searching everywhere to see where the deals are. Sometimes the destination picks you. What about you, Zoe? Any hacks you swear by?
Oh, yes. I love a good travel hack. One thing I always do is look for free activities wherever I'm going. Almost every city has free walking tours, and honestly, they're such a great way to get oriented and meet other travelers. Museums often have free days or hours, and parks, street art, even just exploring neighborhoods can fill your days without spending much. Also, food wise, I try to eat like a local, pick up stuff at markets or bakeries and do picnics. It saves so much and it feels more authentic.
That's such great advice. And I'd add one more, which is don't underestimate hostels. They've gotten such a facelift in the last decade. You don't have to stay in a 20-bed dorm. Many have private rooms now, and they're still way cheaper than hotels. Plus, the social atmosphere is fantastic if you're traveling solo or want tips from other travelers. Actually, Zoe, do you remember that hostel in Budapest I told you about?
The one with the rooftop bar and the free goulash night?
Yes, that one. It was so fun. People from all over the world sharing stories, playing music, and the staff had all these little insider tips for cheap eats and hidden spots. I learned more in one evening there than I could have from hours of Googling.
Hostels can be such a vibe. And even if you're not into sharing a room, they're usually happy to let you join in on the social stuff. Oh, and speaking of community, there's also house sitting or pet sitting, which is something I've tried a couple of times. You get to stay in someone's home for free in exchange for watering their plants or looking after their cat. It's a win win.
That's a brilliant one. I haven't tried it yet, but I have friends who swear by it. And then there's work exchanges like WW woofing or volunteering at hostels or farms in exchange for room and board. It's a way not just to stretch your budget, but to really immerse yourself in a place and learn new skills.
Oh, totally. I woofed on a farm in Italy once, waking up early, helping with the olive harvest, eating with the family. It was hard work, but so rewarding. And I spent almost nothing the entire time. There's also couch surfing, which I know isn't for everyone, but I've met some truly wonderful people that way. It feels a little like travel magic, the way strangers can turn into friends.
I think that's the heart of it, really. When you travel on a budget, you're relying less on money and more on human connection, curiosity, and openness. And you realize that the world is full of generosity. People want to share their culture, their food, their stories. It's humbling in the best way.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think it also changes how you see your own life when you get home. Like, you realize you don't need as much stuff to be happy. You remember that adventure can be found in the little things like taking a different route to work or trying a new recipe. Travel, especially on a budget, kind of stretches your idea of what's possible.
That's so beautifully said. And it also makes you more empathetic, I think. You see how other people live, you notice both the differences and the universal human experiences. And you come back with stories that connect you to others, even if you were just eating bread and cheese on a park bench in Paris.
Okay, but bread and cheese in Paris is unbeatable. But seriously, you're right. Those stories are what matter. And, sometimes I get messages from people who say, I'd love to travel, but even on a budget, it feels out of reach. And I get that. There are real barriers money, time off work, visas. But I also think travel doesn't have to mean going far. Even exploring a new neighborhood in your own city or taking a day trip somewhere nearby can have that same spirit of discovery.
That's so true. I think the mindset is what matters most. The willingness to step out of your comfort zone, to be curious, to look at the world with fresh eyes. Travel starts with that. And sometimes, the most memorable adventures are the ones right in your backyard. I still remember the first time I took a bus to a different part of my city as a teenager. It felt like going to another country.
Oh, I love that. And it's such a gentle reminder that adventure isn't just for the privileged few. It's a way of seeing, not just a plane ticket. And when you do have the chance to go further, all those small adventures have prepared you to make the most of it.
Exactly. And if I could give one piece of advice to anyone listening who dreams of traveling but feels daunted by the cost, it would be start small, start close to home, and build from there. Every little adventure counts, and the world is so much more welcoming and affordable than you might expect.
That's wonderful advice. And I'd add, don't be afraid to ask for help or tips from people who've done it before. Travelers are usually so generous with their knowledge. There are so many communities online, too. Reddit, Facebook groups, even Instagram, where people share deals, itineraries, and support.
Yes, the travel community is amazing. And the more you share your own stories and questions, the more you realize you're not alone. We all start somewhere, and every journey looks a little different.
Okay, so let's get practical for a minute. What's your top three budget travel essentials, Amir? Like the things you always pack or plan for?
Oh, good one. Let's see. Number one, a reusable water bottle. Saves money and the planet. Number two, a lightweight, quick dry towel. You never know when you'll need it. Hostels, beaches, impromptu picnics. And number three, a good offline maps app on my phone, like maps.me or downloading Google Maps for offline use. It's a lifesaver when you don't have data. What about you, Zoe?
Those are so solid. For me, I'd say first, a journal. I know it sounds old school, but jotting down thoughts or sketching little scenes helps me remember trips so much better. Second, a stash of snacks, trail mix, granola bars, because being hangry and lost is not a vibe. And third, a scarf or sarong. It's a blanket, a pillow, a beach towel, even a way to dress up a basic outfit. Multitasking magic.
I love that. The scarf is genius. And the snacks, oh yes. I've learned the hard way that street food lines can be long, and train schedules unpredictable. A little backup sustenance goes a long way.
Exactly. I honestly think, too, that a lot of budget travel is about mindset. Being open to things not going as planned, finding humor in mishaps, and being willing to try new things. Like the time I ended up in a tiny mountain town in Spain because I got on the wrong bus, and instead of panicking, I just wandered around, found a festival, and joined in. It ended up being the highlight of my trip.
That's the spirit. I've had similar mishaps, missed trains, lost reservations, and every time something good has come out of it, even if it didn't feel like it in the moment. I guess part of traveling on a budget is letting go of perfection and embracing the adventure.
100%. And, sometimes when you're traveling with very little money, you end up seeing the generosity of strangers in a way you wouldn't otherwise. Like, I once lost my wallet in Thailand and was pretty much stranded. This lovely family took me in, fed me, helped me contact my bank. It was humbling and beautiful. It really changed how I think about kindness.
That's incredible. It's a reminder, too, that most people in the world are good and want to help. And when you're traveling on a budget, you're more approachable, I think. People aren't intimidated. They see you as a fellow human, not just a tourist.
That's so true. And it can lead to these amazing cross cultural friendships. I still keep in touch with people I met years ago, all because we bonded over getting lost or sharing street food. It's the best.
It really is. And I think, too, that budget travel often means you're contributing more directly to local communities. You're shopping at markets, staying in family-run guest houses, eating at small restaurants. Your money goes further, and it supports the people who make a place unique.
That's such a good point, Amir. Sometimes I think there's this misconception that traveling on a budget means you're somehow missing out, but honestly, I feel like you're actually more present. You're in these local spaces, engaging with real people, and like you said, your money is supporting small businesses or families, not just big hotel chains. It feels more ethical and connected.
Absolutely. And, I think it's worth talking about how the challenge of budgeting can actually spark creativity. Like when you're forced to think outside the box, maybe taking a night bus instead of a hotel to save on accommodation, or picking up a picnic from a local bakery instead of eating at a restaurant, you end up having some of the most memorable experiences. I remember once in Vietnam, I took an overnight train, shared a cabin with a grandmother and her grandson, and we ended up trading snacks and stories. It was way more meaningful than any fancy meal I could have had.
I love that. It's funny, I was just thinking about how some of my favorite meals have been impromptu picnics, like just buying bread, cheese, and fruit and finding a patch of grass. I think when you're not spending a lot, you start to savor the small joys more. You notice the taste of that cheese, the way the sun feels on your face, the sound of a different language all around you.
That's so true. And I think it also makes you more adaptable. You learn to be okay with things being a bit unpredictable. You become more comfortable with uncertainty, and that's a skill that serves you in all areas of life, not just travel.
Yes, and honestly, sometimes those unpredictable moments are the ones you talk about for years. Like the time I got caught in a rainstorm in Prague and ended up ducking into a tiny bookshop. The owner made me tea, and we talked about poetry for an hour. Completely unplanned, and it cost nothing, but it's one of my core memories.
That's beautiful. And I think that's something people don't always realize. Budget travel isn't about deprivation, it's about different priorities. It's about valuing connection, experience, and curiosity over comfort or status. And often, that leads to richer, deeper travel.
Totally agree. And I think too that when you travel on a budget, you're more intentional. You research more, you ask more questions, you really think about what you want to see or do instead of just ticking off the must see list because everyone else does. Like, I remember skipping the super famous sites sometimes just to wander down back streets or sit in a cafe and watch the world go by.
Absolutely. And you end up discovering things that are more personal to you, places you'd never find in a guidebook. I think that's where the joy is. You make the journey your own.
I want to get practical for a minute because I know a lot of people listening are probably curious about concrete ways to save money. We've talked about flights, hostels, and food. What about activities? Are there ways you like to find things to do that don't break the bank?
Great question. My go to, honestly, is just to walk. It sounds simple, but walking is free and you can see so much more than from a car or tour bus. I'll usually look up self guided walking tours online. So many travel bloggers have put together routes for different interests, whether it's street art, history, or food. And then I look for local festivals or events. Sometimes you stumble on a free concert or a street parade, and it's such a treat.
Yes, walking is the best. And I've found that a lot of cities have free or donation based walking tours too. The guides are usually super passionate locals, and you get a real sense of the place from their stories. Another thing I do is check out local markets, not just for food, but crafts, books, music. Even if you don't buy anything, it's such a window into daily life.
That's a great tip. And I'd add, don't be afraid to use libraries. In a lot of cities, public libraries are beautiful spaces, and sometimes they have free events, exhibitions, or even language classes. Plus, it's a great spot to catch your breath and plan your next move.
Oh, I love that. Libraries are like little sanctuaries. And museums. So many have free entry days or late night events that are discounted. I remember in London, most of the big museums are actually always free, which blew my mind. I spent entire rainy afternoons just wandering the galleries.
Yes, and even in cities where museums charge, there's often a free day each month. I always check the websites before I go, and sometimes even just admiring architecture from the outside. Churches, temples, historic buildings can be a highlight. You don't always need to pay to go inside to appreciate the beauty.
So true. And honestly, some of my favorite memories are from just sitting in a square or a park, people watching. I think when you strip away the pressure to do all the attractions, you end up really being in a place.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And honestly, sometimes the best travel moments happen in the pauses, not the plans.
Hearing all this just makes me want to pack my bag and go somewhere new. But I also want to acknowledge sometimes, even with all the hacks, travel can still feel overwhelming if you're on a super tight budget, especially with things like visas or emergency expenses. Have you ever had an experience where you had to get extra creative or ask for help?
Oh, definitely. I remember once in Eastern Europe, I miscalculated my budget and realized I was running out of money before my flight home. I ended up volunteering at a hostel for a week in exchange for a bunk and meals. It was a little scary to ask, but the staff were so understanding, and it turned out to be really fun. I met people from all over, learned some new recipes, and saved enough to get by.
That's amazing. I think there's something really powerful about being able to ask for help or reach out to fellow travelers. Most people are happy to support each other, and it can lead to some of the best connections.
Absolutely. And there's no shame in it. We all have moments where things don't go as planned. Budget travel teaches you resilience and also humility. And like you said earlier, it's often those moments of vulnerability that create the deepest bonds.
I totally agree. I once had a similar experience in South America. My bus broke down in the middle of nowhere, and I ended up hitching a ride with a group of locals who were on their way to a family gathering. They invited me to join, and I ended up dancing and eating with them all evening. It was such an unexpected gift and a great reminder of how generous people can be.
That's such a great story. And it's a perfect example of how travel, especially budget travel, pushes you to trust in the kindness of strangers and in your own ability to adapt.
For sure. And I think it's worth mentioning that some of the best travelers I know are actually locals who explore their own cities with the same curiosity as visitors, like doing a staycation or taking a bike ride to a neighborhood you've never been to. Budget travel doesn't have to be far away. To be,
Yes, I love that idea. We tend to overlook the places closest to us because they seem familiar, but there's always something new to discover. I once challenged myself to do a tourist day in my own city, camera, notebook, the works. I found murals I'd never seen, tried a new cafe, even went on a free walking tour. It totally changed my perspective.
that's such a fun challenge. I might have to try that this weekend. I think it's a reminder that adventure is more about attitude than location. And when you do get the chance to go further, you're already in the habit of seeking out the special hidden gems.
Exactly. And the more you travel, the more you realize that the world is full of ordinary magic, little moments, unexpected beauty, and connections that don't cost a thing.
I love that ordinary magic. That's really what budget travel is about, isn't it? Finding joy in the simple things, being open to serendipity, and connecting with people and places in a real way.
Definitely. And I think, too, it helps you grow as a person. You become more adaptable, more grateful, more aware of what really matters to you. And you end up with stories that you can share for a lifetime.
So true. And, for anyone listening who's a little nervous about starting, maybe you've never traveled solo or you're worried about not having enough or making mistakes, I just want to say it's okay to feel that way. Every traveler started somewhere, and the mistakes often become the best stories.
Absolutely. And there's no one right way to travel. Whether you're going across the world or just around the block, the point is to be curious, open, and kind to yourself and to others. You'll be amazed at what you discover.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And honestly, I hope this conversation inspires someone out there to take that first step, however small. The world is waiting, and it doesn't have to be expensive or complicated.
Yes, and we'd love to hear your stories too. If you have a favorite budget travel tip or an adventure to share, let us know in the comments or message us on social media. Maybe we'll feature some in a future episode.
Oh, that would be so fun. And hey, before we wrap up, just a gentle reminder. If you've enjoyed hanging out with us today, please give us a like, subscribe to Humaning, and maybe share this episode with a friend who dreams of seeing the world. It really helps us keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. We're so grateful for this community and for all of you who tune in and share your own experiences. Travel is one of the best ways we learn about ourselves and each other, and we love being part of that journey with you.
Thank you all so much for listening. Wherever you are, at home, on the road, or planning your next adventure, we hope you find a little bit of magic in the ordinary.
Take care, everyone. Keep exploring, keep connecting, and remember, you don't need a lot of money to have a big adventure.
Until next time, happy humaning.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.